My name is Lalu Davies Yementon, and you're listening to My Brother Podcast.
My guest today knows all about pain, and I'm so glad to welcome Dr. Charles Willis to My Brother Podcast.
Thank
Brother,
you.
how are you doing? First and foremost, it's good to see you.
Fantastic. And let me say, I saw a couple of those podcasts of yours. That is an amazing group of brothers you have there, and I'm so honored to be part of this the stage, to share the stage with them.
Absolutely, man. So glad to have you. So let's just get right into it. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Okay. I'm married, have three wonderful kids. Been in private practice as an anesthesiologist, pain specialist for over 26 years. I am a spiritual man, meaning that any success in life, I attribute through him. Any healing that I perform on these patients, I believe it goes through me, from him. I believe that that's really important because patients can see that, can feel that when you feel strongly about their well-being and their care. My passion is my practice. I'm also passionate. I play racquetball, my food, my travels. I remember being little, and my dad kind of asked me, what I want to be when I grow up, a doctor or a lawyer. Now, I don't remember my response to that, but it kind of sets the seed, plants the seed for that type of mentality growing up. Both my parents are college educated. I'm the first to go beyond college, but I knew since the 8th grade that I wanted to be a doctor. I was good in school. I love sciences. I wanted to help people, and I also wanted a great lifestyle. So to me, that was a no-brainer. And I got into a lot of good schools in Texas, but the goal was I stay at home, save on the dormitory, and that way that can cut out that cost. Well, even though I was pre-med at TCU, I was working. I started waiting tables.
So just to clarify, TCU is Texas Christian University, which is in Fort Worth, which is where you ended up going.
Correct. So it's 15 minutes from where we lived. And even though I was pre-med, I was working. They still wanted me to do household chores. I was like, I don't have time for this. So I had already started waiting tables. I waited tables all through college. I waited tables all through medical school. And that's important. I'll get to that later. But I was like, I have to go. So 6 months into my freshman year, I found a old raggedy apartment off of Rosedale. The money that I was waiting tables actually made me self-sufficient 3 days a week. I paid for my apartment, paid for my car, my insurance, food, everything. And that's kind of the story for the next 8 years, those 3 days a week, working at different restaurants, being self-sufficient. And my parents, obviously they focused on paying for the schooling part. I got my cousin to co-sign for my next car because the Nova had died. So my cousin co-signed for it and never looked back. But that was why that decision was for finances. It ended up being a good decision. TCU was a great school, and I had great experiences there. I placed a fraternity, and through that relationship at Kappa Psi, one of my brothers was a physician in town, and he let me shadow him. He made me clean the toilets and mop and sweep, but at least I got to shadow him, kind of see what being a physician is about. And so that was a positive experience as I kept going throughout my this trajectory.
So one, I want you to share with us what you majored in, and how did you balance taking on such what many will call a challenging major with working 3 days a week, having to take care of the responsibility of essentially living your own life? How did you balance all of that? And what was that major?
I majored in biology. I got a BS in biology. And then there's just life, right? Things happen, girlfriends, friends, partying, and a lot of people, for whatever reason, we can talk about those priorities, just kind of get sidetracked with life a little bit. And you can't do that. Just kind of quickly, in my 3rd year of medical school, my brother was killed. So that was tough. Obviously, he was just in high school, and kind of got in the wrong crowd and ended up getting shot. But I remember being in my studies and, getting a phone call from my other brother about, my little brother. And obviously that can throw somebody off their path very easily. But when you have a goal such as this, nothing, absolutely nothing can get in that way if you're trying to succeed.
Yeah, that takes an incredible amount of focus and determination to overcome that kind of personal tragedy. Yet stick to it. Beyond just, I know it can seem oversimplified when you said I was determined to do whatever it takes. There were some challenging times where was there something you leaned on.
So kind of in the beginning, I said I'm a spiritual man. I'm a Christian, and I believe that gives us strength. It says it, and people, they mouth it all the time. Let God, carry you through this, troubled time. But it's easier said than done. So in putting that in practice is different from just saying it on Sunday, right? So if you truly believe that he can see you through, that he can comfort you, that he can do all these things, then when the test comes, then you have to do it. So I think my spirituality was very instrumental in me, continuing forward and not kind of getting sidetracked when things like this happen. And that foundation, I think, also has carried me throughout the rest of my career. So if you're an anesthesiologist, somebody's having surgery, we take them back, we put them to sleep, we hook them up to the monitors, we most of the time intubate them, where we have to breathe for them with a trachea tube, and so we're managing their vitals throughout the whole time and keeping them asleep through the IV, through the gases coming in through the tube. We're keeping them asleep, we're keeping them safe the whole time. At the end of the procedure, we wake them up, we go to the recovery room. So there are anesthesiologists that do that all day long. Now, that's what I thought I was going to be doing for the rest of my life, right? But as I said, because of divine intervention, I ended up doing some of that, and later on, all pain management. And I would have been fine with that. Right. But like I said, God had something more for me. So all these changes, all these opportunities really just came from word of mouth. I never had, did the headhunter. People who have a need, and then they hear about, service or the quality of service you provided. And so that's how throughout my whole career, that's how this has happened. And so there's a bunch of, there's some CRNAs who had the anesthesia contract. This was at Dallas Southwest. And they needed a medical director. I served as their medical director for about a year or so. And then when the contract was up for renewal, the administration basically told them, we don't want CRNAs, certified registered nurse anesthetist, being the contract holders. We need a doctor to be the contract holder. Well, so I was already in a position as director, so they put it out for bids. I bid it for, probably 3 or 4 other companies bid it for. I got the contract. So now I'm doing anesthesia in the morning, I'm doing pain management in the afternoon at the hospital, and I had the hospital contract, it's an exclusive contract, so that no one could do anesthesia. I had 3 or 4 CRNAs working for me, a few anesthesiologists working for me, and no one could do anesthesia at the hospital without my say-so. So that each year I got the contract again. That probably lasted about 10 years. The hospital closed, another company bought it, got the contract again, and then that went on a year. When it's time for renewal, they said, Dr. we want you to be the medical director. You're doing a great job. And all throughout my tenure, morbidity and mortality decreased. So again, it goes back to putting the patient first. If we go into the surgery and this patient's not optimized medically, I didn't have a problem canceling the surgery. Before, the previous group who was there, they were like, we just need to do this surgery so that we can, make this money, right? But you put the patient first, get them taken care of, they'll come back, they'll appreciate, what you've done for them, versus putting the patient on the table who's at high risk for problems. Now you got increased ICU times, now you got increased deaths, now you got increased. I didn't like that. So we did a great job there. And now I'm kind of in another subset, kind of a niche market, because now my practice is mostly Department of Labor patients, and that kind of happened through divine intervention again. So I take care of mostly the postal workers, TSA employees, and Veterans Administration patients. I still have regular commercial insurance, still have some state workers' comp, but a good percentage of my practice is Department of Labor patients now.
So if you also take a look back over your career, what advice might you offer a 20 or 30-year-old version of Charles?
So I think one of the most important things that young kids can do is find their passion. So if you're, and this is a cliche, obviously. If you're doing what you're supposed, if you're doing what you love doing every day, it's almost like not work, right? You're coming in, you're doing what you want to do. Now, you may not necessarily make a lot of money doing what you love doing, right? You might have to supplement that with another job or something, but obviously the goal for happiness, to me, that's the best way to do that.
Profession, you talked about when you sort of finished medical school, there was an abundance of anesthesiologists. Mm-hmm. What does the future look like, and what are your general thoughts around having more African Americans follow in similar footsteps to yours?
So let me back up a little bit. When you talk about the future of pain management, it's changed, and you've seen this change because of the opiate epidemic. Mm-hmm. So years ago, even when I was at, right out of Pain Relief Network, or probably a year or two after that, I was doing pain management. And I distinctly remember watching 60 Minutes and them talking about, this was 20 years ago, them talking about, the Oxycontins and the Oxycodones, and how people, breaking into the pharmacies and how it's just wrecking these towns. And so I made a decision then, I'm not prescribing it. Mm-hmm. So imagine now how many patients I've had to turn away because of my conviction that, is this good for our society? Is this good for this patient? Or is this risk-benefit ratio too high? So we've already seen big changes in pain management because we've kind of learned that opiates is not the answer to all these problems, or especially high-dose opiates. Yes, they are appropriate in certain circumstances. They're appropriate in certain environments. So used judiciously, opiates still have a role. But the high-dose opiates that the pharmacy, Big Pharma, was telling us was okay to do, that it was safe, nobody's getting addicted. Now you see all these lawsuits, obviously, where they were wrong. They were, again, money. And so you see now kind of the influx of alternatives, CBD and, the meditation and things. So a lot of changes have occurred. I think they're for the better overall for society and for patients. And I love when, people like us, African Americans, want to enter, because I still love what I do. I still have no idea what I would do if I weren't doing this. So people ask me like, when am I going to retire? And I'm like, well, what else would I do? This is what I love. So why would I can't just sit around and fish all day. And as much as I love traveling, I can't travel all the time. I love traveling once a month and take some time off for a few weeks, but I still need something for daily. Yeah. I still encourage people to get into this field. And I still love, so, we talked about the difference between anesthesia and pain management. So you put the patient to sleep, you wake them up. All right, good job, doc. The patient woke up. But in pain management, I see people who've suffered they've been to other doctors, they've been to other pain management. They've been suffering for years, and I'm able to do this or connect with a patient and maybe another doctor couldn't have, and their life is turned. I can't tell you how many times they've said, you literally saved my life. either with that one procedure or with that hug or with that medication. And that's that joy right there. I mean, that's the main reason that I love doing this. You can't put a price on that.
What's your long-term big picture and any closing remarks you might want to share?
I will keep doing what I do as long as I love doing it. If there becomes a point where I don't, then I'll figure out something else. But my closing remark is find your passion, pursue that passion. Hopefully that with you doing that, you can generate, an income that you can live with. But I think that's the most important thing as far as you decide what you want to do on 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week for the rest of your life.
My guest today has been Dr. Charles Willis II. My name is Lalu Davis Yemerton, and you've been listening to My Brother Podcast.
Thank you.